girlfriend. Welcome to the Hope After Breast Cancer podcast. I'm Jan James. We help women strengthen their bodies, renew their minds, and heal their hearts after a breast cancer diagnosis. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. This is Jan James with Hope After Breast Cancer again, and I'm delighted for part 2 of my discussion with Dr. Melody Rodarte. Hi, Mel. How are you?
Hi, good.
I need to say Dr. Mel, but you're my friend too. So, hey, Mel. We've known each other a lot of years, and Melody is my doctor in Gilbert, Arizona. And she is one of the most brilliant providers I have ever run across. And I'm just so excited that she's also one of our contributing experts. So can you tell the folks a little bit about your background? And then we're really here to talk about one of your specialties. So let's talk about that as well.
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me for part 2. And I love the opportunity to help others. And I love that that is your platform, Janet. It has been since 30 years ago when I think probably more than 30 years ago when I met you. So
I think that's right. I remember we were in Jernigan's kitchen, as I recall, when we met.
So it's probably 35 years ago.
Yeah.
But so I'm a DO, or a doctor of osteopathic medicine, and I'm double board certified in internal medicine, and our favorite subject for the day, obesity medicine, which is weight loss medicine, and carry a couple certifications in medical aesthetics, hyperbaric medicine, and wound care. So, but this topic today is one of my absolute favorites, even before I knew there was a board certification in weight loss.
Yeah, what caused you to move into that training? I never even heard that story.
Here's the long and short answer. The way medicine was going back in 2010 to 2012, I was burning out because I really wanted to help people with their weight loss journey and couldn't do it adequately where I was at, as well as their healthcare journey, and had the opportunity to train with 2 experts in the Valley, and took that opportunity to train under them and become board certified, and then return to my love, which is what we had talked about, almost like integrative care, doing it all. So I don't want to only do weight loss. It's just one of the things that I do and I'm an expert at.
Well, and so many people suffer in America about their weight. And in our particular community, you have not experienced breast cancer personally, other than the fact that your mom had breast cancer. So I know that you have a particular heart for our women because of that. You've seen your mom go through everything.
Yes.
But the issue about weight, the problem with weight as it relates to breast cancer, is that this is the Jan James perspective. There's this tribal knowledge that says after breast cancer treatment, and especially after getting on a hormone blocker, you're going to gain weight and there's no way to get it off. That is the drumbeat, the chorus of voices that is out there. And I want to tell a quick part of my story. I was originally diagnosed in 2012, and then that was what I heard from everyone. And I was on blockers. I've been on 3 different blockers over the years. I got off after 5 years, thank God. But in 2017, I was like, I just don't believe. I think I just don't believe that there's no way to do it. So I went on a program where I lost 40 pounds in 6 months. And it was a revelation to me because a lot of things happened concurrent with that weight loss. My brain came back. My joint and muscle pain left the building. There were so many beautiful things that happened with that weight loss. But I have to confess that since that time, and it is my fault and my fault alone, but we all are under so much different pressure. I think that the pandemic and the unsurety of our world these days is creating so much stress on people, and myself included. And it's caused us to goof up the way that we even move in our lives. We're not just doing natural movement. We got holed up in lockdown for so long that we just stopped going for a walk, or we're not going to the grocery store as often. We're not going the places we used to. So I just think our overall movement has decreased. So there's like this perfect storm of things that have happened, and then lay breast cancer on top of that. And the women that are believing the tribal knowledge that there is no way to lose weight, it's very, very demoralizing. And so let's talk about why weight gain happens after a breast cancer diagnosis and treatment. Can you go into that?
Sure. I think there's a couple theories about weight loss with the breast cancer diagnosis. One, you get this mindset of I'm in survival mode, and your oncologist tells you you can eat whatever you want to eat just because they don't want you to feel bad, right? I get that mentality, but I think it's a disservice. We need to talk about how what we eat can make a difference. So one is the type of food, the mindset of, oh, can I do exercise? Can I not do exercise during this time? And I think a lot of people only equate exercise with going to the gym. They forget about riding their bike or taking a walk or just getting stretchy bands. They forget that yoga is a form of exercise. I know that your group definitely understands yoga. There's so many ways to exercise and to burn calories throughout the day. The other thing is the medications that we're now going to talk about. There's about a 25 to 30% of patients who go on any of the breast cancer medications that will gain weight. About 25 to 35% of women 25 to 30%, depending on the studies that you look at, will gain weight with it, whether it's a aromatase inhibitor or a selective estrogen receptor modulator or just chemotherapy alone. About less than 10% of patients will lose weight on these medications, but a majority gain weight. And I think it's the perfect storm of, one, they're told to slow down because, they might not feel well to exercise. Two, they're told they can eat whatever they want to eat because it doesn't make a difference. And three, the side effects of those medications. Let's talk about it. Not only is it weight gain, but you get the joint pain, you get the brain fog, you get the fatigue. So who doesn't want to stop exercising and start eating? It's a perfect storm there. So there's a lot of reasons why weight gain will come on with the diagnosis and treatment of breast cancer. And it has been, my mom's first diagnosis was 2010, very early in my, in my practice. So it became became something that I really did care about in helping. And so with doing obesity medicine in the Valley for the last 10 to 12 years, really, I love that oncologists will send people to me and say, she knows how to help you lose weight or not gain weight during this time. And I will work with the oncologist. I like that they feel safe with sending their patients to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really, it makes me sad about the community at large, that we just kind of paint everything with the same brush and go, oh yeah, there's no way to lose weight. And there's a whole bunch of things that we need to fix for our community, but this is one of them. So, okay. So, but let's talk about even why that, I'm going to call it that myth that you can't lose weight has happened. I think that, like, my sense is that women, I used to say something. Let me digress for a second. I used to say something, and it was one of those hashtag funny, not funny things, right? I think half of the breast cancer community, after their diagnosis, eats raw and runs marathons. I think the other half of us are over at Dairy Queen celebrating that we're still alive. Okay, funny, not funny, right?
But it's true.
It is true, because I think that a lot of us, and this is where my problem is, I think that because I'm back in in fight mode again to go, okay, I need to get my body to like the weight that it's supposed to be instead of overweight. I think that I was giving myself permission to eat comfort food. I was soothing my emotional wounds with comfort food. There are a whole bunch of things that happened, like self-inflicted wounds that I've created for myself. And so I'm trying to work through those and go, okay, but what does my body really need? I mentioned to you that one of our other experts, Dawn Hopkins, is a facilitator for the Am I Hungry mindful eating program. And she has done a couple of podcasts with us that you guys can look up. Super interesting stuff. And she's going to, in 2023, do an 8-week program for us. And I think that learning what your relationship with food is a whole bunch of the equation. But we're going to talk about like what's happening physiologically with us. So why do so many women find that they can't lose weight by just reducing calories after a breast cancer diagnosis?
Unfortunately, the medications and the chemotherapy puts you in a state of menopause. No matter if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, you are put straight into menopause. And then those that have to stay on those medications that are anti-estrogen, you're creating a milieu of weight gain. Yeah, now estrogen is needed for your metabolism, and now we're blocking it. And when we block it, we're allowing those fat cells to grow. It's actually called hypertrophy of the adipose. And that's why so many women are like, when they go through menopause, think about that central part. They're like, I used to never have fat around my belly. Now I have fat around my belly. And that's happening in our liver. So insulin resistance goes up with these medications as well. It's kind of a domino effect, unfortunately. And so you have to, I'm all about root medicine. You have to go down. So we need some of these medications for sometimes 5 or 10 years to help us survive breast cancer. But there are things that we can do in the meantime to help reverse some of the weight gain and side effects that happen. So unfortunately, we do see weight gain with the treatment because we are putting you into a menopause state. And weight gain is more common in menopause because we have the lack of estrogen, we have the lack of hormones that happen, and fat gets distributed differently in our bodies. So that's kind of one of the ways that we see why we see weight gain with the treatment of breast cancer and being on these medications.
We're talking about, I think, mostly estrogen blockers, right? Aromatase inhibitors or SERMs, but I know a ton of women that are on antidepressants as well. Does that impact obesity as well?
Some of them are actually, yes. So, yes, some medications are weight promoting. So many people are on Benadryl. They don't even know that Benadryl is weight promoting, and they're taking it because they can't sleep because they're in pain, or they're now having hot flashes and all these other issues. So look, what an obesity medicine specialist does is look at all your other medications. Some are weight promoting and we try to change them out. So if you're on a medication like Cymbalta or Lyrica, gabapentin, those are weight promoting. Maybe we'll try a Prozac or a Wellbutrin or an Effexor. Now, this is not 100%, it's not, I've had somebody gain weight on Effexor when usually they lose weight on it. So it's something that you work with your practitioner over with what are some of the medications that we need to be changing. And I'm going to, we talk about putting a Band-Aid on it. Why are we depressed? So do we need the antidepressant? Is one of the questions I like to ask is why are we on it? And do we need it? And can we change it?
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. Totally. So there's a bunch of gals that are on hormone blockers. There's a bunch of gals that aren't. So they were ER negative. Perhaps they were HER2 negative. So can they still experience weight gain?
I think most of their weight gain are secondary to being in that survival state. So then I'd like to know, what are they eating? How are they sleeping? Or, what's their lifestyle? And depending on if they went through a lumpectomy and radiation, and then, or did they go through a double mastectomy and immediate reconstruction and now they're not exercising? And, they might, what are they eating? What's their mentality? Are they doing more comfort food? So I like to dive deep into what are the calories, because you can decrease your calories, but you might be still eating the wrong calories. So that's one of the things we dive. What is the nutrition? What are you really eating, and what times of the day are you eating? Mm-hmm. And sometimes I increase calories and people start to lose weight. They're not eating enough for their body. All of our bodies are a little bit different. So when someone says, what's your favorite diet? I'm like, the one that you'll stick to and your body likes.
Right. Exactly. That's the same answer for exercise. Which one works? The one that you're going to do. So same thing.
Completely. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay. Well, and then let's talk about surgical menopause. A lot of the gals get thrown into surgical menopause.
Yeah. So surgical menopause can happen with a hysterectomy alone, as well as if you have a hysterectomy with your ovaries removed. So a total hysterectomy. So some will call a partial, meaning they only took the uterus out. And a total is when they take the uterus and the ovaries out. So the problem with just taking the uterus out is sometimes you can have premature, then ovarian failure. So a lot of times we'll leave the ovaries in because they look fine. You might be ER/PR negative. And so we just, you just had a hysterectomy only. Well, clamping of that endometrial artery can actually lead to it quote unquote failing early. So you might have been left your ovaries, but they might not be working like they're supposed to. So we call it surgical menopause or early menopause, and that actually can affect then how you put on weight, because it's more common for women to put on a little bit of weight during menopause because of the disturbance in the hormones that is happening. And I know we've discussed about hormone therapy in another podcast. And so that's a topic for another, either returning back to or for another day. But balancing hormones is definitely important. And when we can't use hormones for a while, we have to find other modalities to, one, reduce the weight, and two, keep it off.
Yeah, you said earlier that estrogen affects metabolism. I never had that put together. That's interesting. So, so the fact that we're estrogen suppressed, there's another thing to tuck away for me. So that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm carrying around all this extra weight, Dr. Mel. Is that dangerous for my life, for my recurrence rate, all of those things?
Yes. So when you're carrying around the weight, you're in more of an inflammatory state. So whether or not you have had breast cancer or not, we know for a fact that obesity increases the risk of cardiovascular events and other cancer events. It's an inflammatory state. And so we do want to reduce weight, to reduce inflammation, to reduce those disease processes, either one beginning or two progressing.
Right. Let's talk about sugar, because boy, I mean, all of us, there are girls. Oh, it just breaks my heart. Well, I was at my niece's birthday party yesterday, but I stayed away from the cake. Or it's like it's an all or nothing kind of proposition. I think she was proud to be able to say that she stayed away from it, but should we eat the cake? Should we not eat the cake? What's the thing with sugar? What's the deal?
So I always want someone to reduce sugar as much as possible. And sugar is a carbohydrate. And so a lot of people think, oh, I'm not eating the desserts, but they're having the bread, the rice, the pasta, the cereals, the oatmeal. And so we have to lump that all together. I want to know what their total carbohydrate intake is. Simple sugars are a definite no when there's inflammation and when we're trying to lose weight. So I'm okay with the complex carbs from your vegetables. Maybe we choose some of the healthy types of fruits, and we're not, blending them in a blender, and now it's a sugary beverage instead of eating them whole, when now they've got the fiber around it and with a meal. And so, I love the person who says, I didn't eat the cake at the party, but I had the mashed potatoes and the bread or in the glass of wine. And I'm like, let's go back to what a carbohydrate is and what a
That's
sugar is.
interesting. So alcohol has sugar in it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so what do you think about alcohol in the whole equation of weight?
I challenge my patients to do no alcohol for 30 days when they start with me, because it actually, alcohol slows down your metabolism. It's been shown that we eat more when we drink. And then also it's extra calories. So I challenge everybody to remove alcohol for at least 30 days. And then we decide when we want to put it in. And when we drink it actually makes a difference. So do we eat a salad first and then start on our meal and then have our glass of wine, or have the wine as dessert? Totally different than if you get to the party and you start sipping on your wine and then you sit down for your meal.
And breaking news, and I'm sorry to say this, ladies, but it's true. There are many clinical studies that show that alcohol is related to recurrence. So be careful out there. So just so you know, and if you need the data, let me know.
And if they need the data, go to your doctor's office or go to the grocery store and buy a glucose monitor and check it out for yourself. See what happens.
That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. Speaking of glucose, I just was thinking about juices. What's the deal with juices? Oh, I used to love a really great glass of orange juice. I liked it pulpless, so I liked it processed. So that was even worse, I know now. But what's the deal with juices? Should we drink juices?
No. No is my quick answer.
You would say that. I knew you would say that.
So here's the thing. Most of the time when you eat an orange, you eat one orange. But a glass of orange juice, especially if it's pulpless, is probably 5, 6, maybe even 10 oranges to make it. So, and you've removed it from the fiber.
Right. Which is,
and now it's sugar straight into your veins, you know.
It's like having an IV. I know. Yeah. And really from a glucose standpoint, I mean, I know that we want to have foods that have low glycemic index, right? And sugar is like, you know, so, and we feel good after we eat it or drink it because of that reason. But boy, it is not good for us. So
it's very addictive. There's a study that showed mice preferred Oreos over cocaine. You can look it up.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So a sugar high is a real thing. And some of us are wired where we even get a bigger high. It is an addiction. There is a food and a sugar addiction. And so let's go back to the juicing, because someone's going to be like, I was told juicing is healthy. There's a healthy way of doing juices. Going to a juice bar and getting a Jamba Juice, let's just say. Now I'll get some bad emails or something, but they're chocked full of just fruit, sugar. So, you know, when you're putting your kale and you're putting, you know, your spinach and your celery and maybe then just a few berries or half an apple to give it a little sweetness, there's a difference there. So nobody write me letters about juicing, please.
No. And my question is more about going and getting, you know, a bottle of juice out of the case at Walmart and, you know, pulp free and all that stuff and everything. And I used to be that's yummy. And, you know, and I got addicted to it for sure. You know, it's like, gotta have my juice. So yeah, it's that's the reason why juice happens to be, I guess, you know, hey, he's juiced. Well, that's probably why they say that. Anyway. So, but I digress.
We digress.
That's all right. Hey, let's talk about, it's such a frustration when we hit plateaus. Why do plateaus happen?
So plateaus can happen because our body's not used to being at a certain weight, and there might just be a few other things that we need to change. So sometimes when my patients hit a plateau, I might have them eat more calories and take a little break, maybe go up 200 or 300 calories, see what happens. We might actually go on a fast and try to break it up. So we're trying to shake up our metabolism. And you know, sometimes we hit a plateau and that's our new norm for a while because something else might need to be cleaned up. Or I love to tell my patients, you are not going to be the same size you were in high school most of the time. So please don't put that as your goal, because you're only going to then be upset because you never get to that goal. Let's find where you're not hurting, you're fitting, your blood work looks better. You can go up a flight of stairs. You can fit into a seat normally and not need an extender. So a lot of times a plateau might be where your body really wants to stay for a little bit. But sometimes we have to bust through it. So it just depends on where the individual is at.
Very cool. No, that's good. I think that's a question that, that is always such a frustration, I think, when you're being really focused on losing some weight. So that's important. Is it important to get our providers involved in a weight loss discussion?
I think so. But here's the problem sometimes with most. I think the majority will say, eat less, exercise more. And they're not really getting the whole gist of it. So seeking out someone who has a specialty in weight loss, I think is imperative. Because we're not going to say eat less and exercise more, because we know there's more to the story. And so I think that's really important when you're only getting that advice from a provider.
Okay. But are there weight loss medications that we might want to seek out, or?
Yes. And some providers are comfortable with prescription weight loss medications, and some aren't. I'd say the most common one right now that people are loving are the GLP-1 agonists. It's a big word, but those who have diabetes might already be on one. They're the injectable things, and the most common one is Ozempic that people are loving right now. And it might be called Wegovy or Sextenda in the weight loss world. It's the same drug. So these weight loss medications, that one's one of them that can be very helpful. Phentermine has been around since 1959, which is an appetite suppressant. It can be used at any point, and there's no addiction, there's no withdrawal. It can be abused, I will say, and that's usually someone who is not being told how to take it. So they might go on a very low calorie diet, forget to drink their water, take this, and now they're constipated and they feel like, their heart's racing out of their body. Well, they're not using it correctly. So it's a very safe medication when used correctly, in my opinion, as well as we have a couple studies looking at people 20 years on this. There are, we touched base on antidepressants. One of the ones that we use is Wellbutrin, especially when people have a lot of cravings. And it might be paired with a medication called naltrexone, and then the brand name is called Contrave. That really works with the food addiction part, where it's more of a mental thing. You mentioned, how you felt when you were a child eating food, and going back to your relationship with food. So that's one of the medications I might put someone on who doesn't have a great relationship while they're going through something called cognitive behavioral therapy or working with a counselor. It doesn't mean they're always going to be on it, but it's helping balancing those neurotransmitters and helping cutting the cravings down, so you don't feel like you're crazy and you just you keep craving food. Okay. There's Topamax, which it works on the GABA center. A lot of people don't love this medication. It can be paired with phentermine and called Kisimia, but it's kind of a lot of people it's a seizure medication, and they notice people were losing weight, and especially if someone wants to break their soda habit. Soda tastes like metal when you're on this medication. So some people will go on this to help them break their soda cravings and soda, because it just tastes like you're drinking metal. You're sucking on a penny. And then there's metformin. Metformin is actually one of my favorite when someone has to be on, when we talked about aromatase inhibitors and SERMs, because of that insulin issue that's happening. So I love metformin in those patients, because I'm treating the insulin resistance. I'm helping avoid fatty liver and high cholesterol from those medications that you're having to go on. And so it is a diabetic medication, but we use it in weight loss. And and in pre-diabetes. So those are kind of the bigger picture of the types of medications. And some doctors are very comfortable with prescribing them, and healthcare providers, and some aren't. They might want you to go see someone who is specialized in obesity medicine.
Are all of these prescriptions, or are there over-the-counter things?
All of those are prescription. One that's not prescription is called Plenity. That one makes you poop if you eat fat. So I tell everybody, try it at home because you might soil your. Think about those. What were the potato chips with I can't think of the name of them. They were so popular in the 90s, and people were pooping their pants.
No, not Pringles or anything like that.
No, they're off the market now.
Oh, they're off the market. I don't know. Yeah.
But there are some things that are over the counter, or I would say natural based, like that try to help with your leptin, and like some people want green coffee extract or citrus polyphenols. And I'm going to tell you honestly, it depends on the manufacturer and the dose. Mm-hmm. In Europe, they're very common. I think they have better dosing and less fillers in there. So you're getting kind of the actual herbal at the right dose. And so it can work for some people for sure. If it's done, I mean, I would say the natural form of metformin is berberine. If someone has heard of berberine.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
There's an incredible study that looked at the results with using berberine and metformin in pre-diabetics. And at therapeutic doses, berberine worked just as good as metformin. And of course, then it's natural and it's less side effects.
Right. Oh, and as I age, it just seems like I'm leaning more towards natural solutions. So that's great to know. That's great. What kind of blood work should our folks talk to their doctor about that could be informative about the direction they should go for weight loss?
Yeah, I think knowing what their insulin, the fasting insulin score, can give us some really good idea of what's happening, as well as an A1C. I think sometimes an A1C is not done if they don't think diabetes is happening. But I start treating when there's pre-diabetes and there's your fasting insulin is above 10. I don't wait for it to get above 10. We start talking right away. They can do inflammatory markers like a SED rate or a CRP or a high sensitivity CRP. Let's look at your cholesterol. What's the ratio, of your cholesterol? Look for your liver enzymes. Is there signs of fatty liver? A full thyroid panel. Unfortunately, because when we talk about menopause and these medications, part of that might be you might end up with secondary hypothyroidism or subclinical hypothyroidism. And so it's not functioning like it should. And sometimes we have to support thyroid function. Nutritional deficiencies too, I think, are missed sometimes. And when those are replaced, you feel better because your brain is working. If you were low in some of the B vitamins or iron, or D. So there is some blood work that we can do to see where someone is at, how their metabolism is working.
Right. Well, I have a curveball to throw to you. Let's just talk about the wisdom, or you may disagree, but of intermittent fasting. What does that do for the body? It seems to be the rage, It
is the rage. And some people do great with it and some people don't do great with it. So, and I think it's all about how it's done. Intermittent fasting is shutting down or reducing the hours that we eat, because sometimes people will eat from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to bed, and going to bed on a full stomach has actually been shown not to be the best of things to do. So when we put or implement intermittent fasting in, we have this window of when we're eating. And I think people are more mindful of their portion and what they're eating. So I think that's why it works really well, because it's not a free for all for the whole day. And then some people do really well with skipping breakfast through that intermittent. They break their fast. That's where breakfast comes into play, about 10 in the morning, or maybe even they wait till noon to have their first meal. It works really great for some people, and some people they feel horrible on it. They have to eat. They're a breakfast person where they might stop eating at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon and not even do a big dinner. So that's where when someone says, what's your favorite diet? I say the one that you'll stick to. We can play around with that and see, because some bodies don't do well with it. Other bodies flourish with it. It's like the first time that they've ever heard, nope, you can skip breakfast and just have your first meal around, late morning or early afternoon. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is a miracle. This feels wonderful.
Yeah. Well, during the season, I lost that 40 pounds several years ago. I was doing intermittent fasting, and it was very interesting. Personally, I got so much energy from it. And that just was so counterintuitive, right? But I talked to a dietitian that I was working with back in those days, and she said, Americans are so used to overeating calories. Like, you go to McDonald's and have a meal or something, and, you've eaten enough for 3 days. And your poor body is having to process all of those calories that you forced on it. So when you take a step back and give your body a break from digesting, it releases endorphins and, all these wonderful things happen in your body. Is that kind of how you see it too, that your body, when it works, your body can respond in a really beautiful way?
Yeah, it's been shown when you implement intermittent fasting or do a 24-hour fast, you increase stem cells, and those are very healing.
Interesting.
And so there's a lot of information on doing it correctly. There's ways. I'll just throw this out there. Dr. Victor Longo, Longo, is the most publicized, I guess is the word to use. He's kind of the grandfather of intermittent fasting. So he's got incredible research out there. He really is into using it as a longevity tool, and studied people who do this, as well as done studies with how to do it with eating. So he's someone who you could look up, and he's got actually a plan where you can eat and still get the same. It's called the fasting mimicking diet. So you get some of the same results as fasting, but this is what you have to eat during it.
Well, it's so interesting because there's lots of different ways to do intermittent fasting. Like you just mentioned, doing a 24-hour fast. That would not include obviously water or clear liquids or whatever, right? But a lot of people will do that time sensitive kind of intermittent fasting where you don't eat for 16 hours, but you eat for 8. So, okay, let's talk about that. So this is what you're saying. When you wake up you break your fast at 10 a.m. and you eat until 6 p.m., then you have that next 16 hours where your body is at rest. I mean, it's going to digest the food you ate.
Digestion rest. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so what happens when our body is at rest? I like to talk about autophagy so much. It's one of my favorite topics. And I was fascinated with it back in the day. And I like to call it taking the garbage out.
But it is.
It really
it's cleaning
is.
up cells. So the cells that need to die, they're cleaned up. So intermittent fasting or 24-hour fast or time restricted eating, that's what you were kind of mentioning too. Yeah. That increases autophagy. That also increases stem cell production. It helps reduce inflammation. So there's a lot of benefits to doing those types of eating because if we're not eating, our body is able to do other processes. And so when it's done with that digestion, then it can go focus on other areas of what to do of its function. And I think the biggest thing, and both of us have discussed it, is like, what are we eating? So if we're starting with, when we implement this and we start to implement better foods, then we're actually eating foods that are more healing. And that's where we start to see weight loss, because we're removing inflammatory foods. We're reducing the calorie intake. We're not eating late at night. I mean, there's a domino effect here of why then we start to lose weight here.
Right.
And feel better.
Right. Now, can you talk just a little bit about the whole detoxing, also the craze of detoxing? On some level, I get it. And on some level, I think there's some good and bad in the whole detox conversation, in my opinion, but, I'd like to.
There is, our liver was made to detoxify. I mean, period. I could put a period. There's phase 1, phase 2 detoxification happens every day in our liver. Can we sometimes increase that by what we're eating, and maybe some supplements that we do? Yeah, we can promote, quote unquote, a detoxification, but what we're doing is allowing natural processes to happen. So a lot of times I'll sit with someone and I'm like, what's your goal of detox? What do you think detox is? Are you just cleaning up your diet and now your body? Because detox can mean then that withdrawal from the sugar, and you get the cravings and you get the sweats and you get the headache and you're moody and you want to rip somebody's head off, and we call it hanger, or it could be, you alluded to someone who starts to do marathons and is starting to eat right. And so their body from that sheer extreme exercise, they might have to take a rest and increase their glutathione to help, because they've built up lactic acid with the type of training that they've done or the fast that they've done. And so there's different degrees of detoxification that might need to be done, but our bodies are set up to do that. So it's supporting the body in those functions that are normal.
Interesting. Okay. So it's good. Just a good conversation and clarification to have. So that's fine. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about exercise and our breast cancer girls. And I appreciated that you had said earlier, and this was something that came from the discussion with Dawn Hopkins too about mindful eating. I have to tell you, I got my bell rung when she said, exercise does not have to happen in the gym. It can happen during your day. And I thought, oh my gosh, changing the sheets on the bed, pulling weeds. I mean, just normal life movement is really exercise. Now, I would say that at times in my life, I have become so sedentary that I even let those things go. And so I get that but we have to reframe what exercise is. Exercise, I think, in a lot of ways to me, is like punishment for not eating right. And that is not what it's meant to be. God made our bodies to move. So
I agree with that.
Yeah. Can you talk about how we can exercise? What's a successful strategy on that?
So one, if you are a cancer survivor and you've been told not to exercise for a while and you're like, where do I start? I say, I want you to start where you feel comfortable. If it's walking around the block, my goal might be trying to get 5,000 steps a day in, and then 10,000 steps a day in, and working up from there. For those who are used to exercise and burnt out, I encourage them to try to find another modality that they like Pilates or yoga, or a bar class. Maybe take a swimming class up, and water aerobics are becoming popular again. For those who absolutely love to do, what are they called? Like boot camps and HIIT. Go for it, as long as you're not getting tired from doing them, because your body is still, healing. So I always bring someone in and ask them, what do you like doing? What do you hate doing? Like for me, I hate running. If a doctor told me to run, I would go, I'm never listening to you again. You never asked me what I like to do. So getting a personal trainer, one that knows and understands if you're overweight, they actually can get a certification in weight and personal training, someone who's overweight, that exists. Number two is getting a personal trainer that understands you might have different anatomy. If you are someone who's had a double mastectomy with reconstruction, they put your pec muscles somewhere else in your lats, and guess what? You don't move. You can't do a push-up the same way. So you need someone who understands that your anatomy has changed. Two, if you've even just had a lumpectomy, or you still might have different fibrosis that can happen and everything. So physical therapy is incredibly important to figure out how your body needs to move or help get the scar tissue down. And then two, a personal trainer that's not 20 years old at whatever, LA Fitness, who's going to hurt you. And I literally mean hurt you. Yeah. So you might have to seek someone out and do this via referral. But finding a movement, and it might be doing a one-on-one session with a Pilates instructor or a yoga instructor, and figure out what way your body moves now. Because if you went into menopause, secondary to one of these medications or surgical menopause, your muscles and your tendons and your body is not going to move the same way. It's figuring out how to let it move without hurting too much. And it might be chair yoga instead of, real yoga. It might be, using resistance bands. So we want to work up and figure out things that, one, don't feel like work, that you're kind of getting a little bit of enjoyment out of, and not making you hurt. Because when we hurt, we're like, we're done. I don't want this,
What do you mean no pain, no gain?
I hate that term for exercise.
Yeah, it's not right.
Definitely the wrong thing to use.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't want to hurt. So, yeah.
No, so movement is so important. If someone goes back to work, getting a sit-stand desk or getting a little pedal bike that goes underneath their desk, setting an alarm to walk around the house or walk around the building. You mentioned, I can't remember the example you did, but I'll challenge my patients when they're putting away laundry. Don't try to do it all in one trip. Right. And do it multiple times. Do lunges as you're taking the laundry to the bedroom. Do side shuffles. Maybe while you're cooking, do 10 push-ups on the side of the counter. Things that just get your blood going, that gets your heart rate up. It doesn't have to be an hour at the gym when you don't really have an hour.
It's really funny. I work from home, and because I work at my desk most of the day, I tend to get tight shoulders and everything. And what I've been doing is using the door frame to stretch myself. And it feels so good to do that. And I know that that's just helping a whole bunch of my muscles in my body. And so and you can use your kitchen island to do squats, hold on to that and do squats or stretches or lunges or whatever you need to do. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways that we could do this. I have a rebounder, a mini trampoline in my office that I'm on every once in a while. Okay, friends, you can hire a trainer. You should hire a trainer if you need that accountability. But if you can do it yourself, oh my gosh, there is tons of stuff online that you can do. For my rebounding classes, there are some people that I follow, and I can just do a quick 20-minute little workout on the rebounder that helps because I have a prolapsed urethra. I have been told that I should really empty my bladder before I rebound. But other than that, it's great for your balance. It's kind of low impact cardio. So, there's lots of different ways to go there. So, yeah. Now you had just mentioned to me, people ask you, can they exercise off their weight? So tell me about that.
Yeah. So I love giving them the number. So 80% of weight loss is nutrition. Right. What are you eating? Calorie reduction. So you can't out eat a poor diet. You can't out exercise, I should say, a poor diet. So that's important. So exercise is part of it can be part of weight loss. It's definitely part of keeping it off and helping that metabolism stay strong. But you can't out exercise a poor diet.
Right. Okay. So with that being said, let's wrap up with, I made notes and said, okay, so if diet is the thing, what do we need more of? What do we need less of? There are so many voices out there going, it's this, it's keto, it's watermelon, it's celery, it's, whatever. And we've all done so many different diets, but like when you look at macros, so macros, for those that don't know, would be like fats, carbs, and protein. Like what balance of those do you think is ideal typically for weight loss?
I don't like people getting stuck in the number parts. Oh. So I tell them I want protein 3 times a day with vegetables, as many vegetables as you can get, and the good fats, and then limit your carbohydrates. That seems to be super easy for people to follow because now they're not weighing things. They're not putting it into an app, which you're more than happy to do. Like there's My Fitness Pal and there's Levels, and there's so many out there that if you want to get down to the nitty gritty. But the biggest thing is at least protein 3 times a day, lots of vegetables, and limit your carbohydrates, and have the good fats like avocado and olives and coconut. And there's the good fats. Those are really important, in keeping away from, I say, the middle parts of the grocery store with all the processed foods. If we're eating whole foods, we're doing pretty good. We can do pretty good that way.
Right. And I think, I've really learned colors is really, it's such an important thing, isn't it? The colors,
it is.
Having a colorful plate, which is interesting. When you're saying limiting carbs, okay, so we can say, you talked about the simple sugars, for sure, limiting that as much as possible. But really what we're going for is complex carbs, right? So what kinds of things does that include?
So whole grains, when you actually make your bread and you've got whole grains in there, that's different than doing a flour, right? Kind of thing. Yes, you're going to have to use a little bit of it in there. But if they want to do like a whole grain or eat steel cut oats, I'll allow that depending on where they're at. And I'll have people add a scoop of maybe a plain protein powder into their steel cut oats, or an egg. So now there's a bigger balance here with some walnuts. Now you're getting good fats as well as some protein and fiber. So it's kind of how you mix, how you put things together. I think I'm getting lost in one of the questions. Complex carbs cannot do, so your quinoa, beans. So beans have, it'll have your fiber and your carbohydrate and your protein in there. So, some of your vegetables are going to have carbohydrates in there, but there's so much fiber that it's hard to get that blood sugar spike from it. Corn is I tell people, just kind of take corn out of the picture for a while.
Right.
Tomatoes can be a little bit high carbohydrate for some people. Just see if their blood sugar spikes with it. So, it's kind of learning to see how their body reacts, but usually about 4 to 6 ounces of protein in that meal. And the salad can be as big as, those green leafy vegetables and colors. I agree with it, because now you're getting all the polyphenols and you're getting all these different nutrients in the food. Now, don't douse it with dressing.
Right. And organic is important.
Mm-hmm. I would say with some things. So I always tell people, look at the dirty dozen and clean dozen for where you spend your money on things. So the lettuces, you kind of want them to be a little cleaner. They're in the ground. So what's the soil look like? And some things, but I also would rather you eat really healthy, and sometimes it's okay that you're not doing all organic, because I want you to eat healthy instead of going and picking something like at McDonald's that might be 99 cents.
What's your favorite proteins for us?
Chicken is great. Limit beef, limit pork, fish. Love cold water fishes. Those are excellent sources of it. And then the beans. I think so many people forget about beans, and they're so good for us. They really are. So lentils and black beans I think lentils are my favorite. So
yeah, we use a lot of beans here too, which is good. But I think they're surrounded by some comfort food items as well. So I'm taking this information to the chef, who is not me.
So many people forget about bison. Bison is tasty. It's super lean.
Really?
Yeah. And
it sounds like it would be really gamey, but no.
It's not. And like Costco and Sprouts has it now. So it makes it even more affordable. Mm-hmm. Okay. I limit the pork. Most of the time, I do limit pork. I tell my patients to limit pork. Because it seems like everybody who does keto is eating pork. I'm like, there's a better way of doing things.
Yeah. If someone really recently found, and I know that it's, it comes in a package, so it was frozen and processed, but there's a chicken that is, we call it chork. It's not called that, but that's what we call it at our house. But it is actually like smoked. It tastes like smoked pork, but it's chicken. And It's really delicious goodness. And so we've used it in lots of different recipes, chilies and things like that, to get that protein in there. But it's definitely chicken. Yeah. I see the label.
And ground turkey? A lot of people will make
Yeah,
their chili with
right.
ground turkey or do like an Asian stir fry kind of thing and use coconut amino acids versus like soy can be helped because some people are staying away from soy. You can do a coconut amino acid there to kind of get that flavor and to have less calories.
Awesome. Okay. Excellent. Well, good. Anything else that we need to think about? Oh, you mentioned rehab. What did that mean in the note you sent me?
I think I was meaning that with just as we talked about exercise. So some women have to go through when someone has a heart attack and you think of cardiac rehab.
Yeah.
Well, when you've had some of these surgeries and you've been down and radiation and everything and you're deconditioned, ask for physical therapy, referral, and then you're now more ready to then possibly then start to exercise after that because you're more comfortable, you know how to move.
Right. And I think that they give you the knowledge of the limits that you should go to as you're healing, which is really helpful as well. So if your insurance covers, PT sessions, a dozen PT sessions, that might be a good investment of your time after. I mean, the surgeries are significant. We shouldn't downplay that. So I think we do get a little bit leery about how much we can do and how much we can move. So getting a professional involved makes a lot of sense. So that's great. Good suggestion. That's great. Well, good. Well, we're going to wrap up. Thank you, Dr. Melody Rodarte, for your
Thank you.
I mean, I've been wanting to talk to you about obesity for so long. So I'm so glad we finally got it on tape, and we'll be sharing it with all of our groups and with the rest of the world too on our YouTube and Rumble channels. So thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
No, thank you for inviting me. It's one of my favorites.
We love having you, and we're just so, I continue to say this, we are blessed with a ridiculous group of contributing experts in so many disciplines. It's just we are blessed. So I hope women will really take advantage of all of the recordings that we've done. We've got a treasure trove of education that is free to them and to help them learn how to heal their unseen wounds. So we're so grateful for your involvement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. So guys, this is Jan James for Hope After Breast Cancer Podcast. We'll see you next time. Take care. Hey there. Thanks for listening to our podcast. We love to encourage and equip our women to heal after their diagnosis and to give them hope. Please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. I look forward to seeing you next time.